strategy-focused group. We not only upskill, we inspire, enable, educate, discuss, innovate. Motivate, challenge, let us help you elevate your team. Email us at info@strategyfocusedgroup.com.
Identify and book the world's best speakers for your next event. MENA Speakers is the leading speakers and MC bureau in the Middle East. We bring global talent to the region and have established the region as a key global hub for speakers. Inspire and motivate your audience. Find exactly what you are looking for by working closely with us to assist you in understanding the cost-benefit analysis tied to selecting a speaker for any event. Ensure that your audience is educated, engaged, and empowered. Connect with us for a quick response and tailored advice. Book your speakers now.
Good morning, good evening, depending upon what part of the world you're in. If it's Friday, you know it's the CEO series, where we bring together global leaders, entrepreneurs, innovators, and disruptors to discuss a range of topics. Today, we are honored, and I say honored, to have as our guest Darwin Rivers, currently the VP of HR for a global HR operations for a global BPO company. He has worked across the globe. His biography would take me 10 minutes, which we don't have. You name it, he's done it. You name the award, he's won it. He has been featured in different media from CNN, GMA7, Inquirer, Philippine Star, Manila Bulletin, and it goes on and on, as well as Esquire magazine. And I'm also a big fan of Darwin over the years. And Darwin, we're glad to have you here. So welcome.
Hi, Ron. It's my pleasure. And as I mentioned to you a while ago, it's an honor to be in your show. It's the other way around. I've always been a fan of yours. You're always been an inspiration, not only to me, but to a lot of Filipino HR leaders. And please know that we are following all of your success and you inspire us to do more. Thank you.
Thank you. So as it's a mutual admiration society. So we're big fans of each other. So that's cool. So, we were talking earlier, and I've always watched your career. So walk us through your first job in HR to reach the pedestal that you're at now, because you're at the top.
Okay. I think, Ron, well, let me start with what I really want to do when in life. Not many people know that I've always wanted to be three things or having three kinds of career. I wanted to be a priest, I wanted to be a teacher, and I also wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a lawyer because I'm someone who grew up in society where I see social injustice. I wanted to be a teacher because I always admire people who share their knowledge and experience and have really I'm astounded whenever I have teachers who inspire me to do more. And I always wanted to be a priest because priests not only inspires, they transform people. So those are the things that I really wanted when I was young. But throughout my career, I started my career in operations. I worked in different fast food chains, and then I decided to work in a BPO company. I work at the uh, ASEAN hub, the ASEAN hub of DHL when they were still here in the Philippines as a call center agent. then move into different companies, and from operations, I become an agent, team lead, operations supervisor to manager. Then I decided to follow what I really wanted. I wanted to be in human resources
Okay.
because e- even back when I was in operations, I was doing interviews for possible team members that will be part of my team. I've been coaching, mentoring, I've been training.
Okay.
So I've said, might as well shift a career from operations to HR. And I started my career in HR in talent acquisition, recruitment, being the gatekeeper of the
Okay.
company.
One of the things that caught me about that descriptive, you said you thought about teacher, lawyer, priest. Which those same skills could be used in each one of those categories.
Agree, agree. I just realized when I was attending a conference way back when the speaker said that as an HR professional, we wear different hats.
Different hats.
And
Yes.
that's true, right? It's true. We wear different hats because we act in the situation that we are needed on. We
Mm.
can be teachers,
Yeah.
mentors, we can be
Yeah.
lawyers, we
Yeah.
can be priests. So we wear
Yeah.
different hats.
Yeah. So when I do leadership development, that's one of the things I talk about is the toolkit. So the toolkit says, in this situation, I've got to be the priest. In this situation, I've got to be the legal expert or the lawyer.
Mhm, mhm.
So each interaction depends upon the tool we'll use to so-called fix that. Is that correct?
Agree, agree, agree. You cannot. I think as an Asia professional, aside from being someone who wears different hats, you should be someone who really has a mastery of about almost everything,
Yeah.
because this would help you really connect not only to employees but people who trust you.
Yeah.
The main core of why HR is successful is because people trust us.
Mm. Well, I could challenge that in a lot of situations when we work with clients across the globe. So, because in a lot of cases, when they see HR come in, they say, "Oh my God, here's HR coming. I'm either going to get laid off, I'm going to get fired, I'm going to get disciplined, all these kinds of things." So that's a branding kind of issue. And I struggle with this as I talk to clients. You talked about trust, connecting with people. What advice would you give to a so-called head of HR, and you've got a culture whereby HR is not trusted? HR may have done things in the past, and they've created kind of a brand that's kind of a disconnect between people and the HR function. How could how could we repair that? How could we begin the process of building up trust?
Well, I always believe that if you wanted to change your surrounding, you have to start with changing yourself. You
Mm,
have to be a model of everything that you wanted to happen in the outside world. So basically, uh, be someone or be a model of what culture you would like to implement in your company. And then second to that is share that vision to your team members, share that vision to your stakeholders, make sure that they understand where you are coming from, the plans that you are implementing, the initiatives, why are you doing this. And basically I would also add to it that always be someone who people would always see.
mm,
That you will always be someone who employees can always
yeah.
talk to, approach,
Mhm.
and be able to talk without any fear, without any
Yeah.
hesitations. And again, it starts with your personality.
Yeah. Yeah. So we start from within, and that
We start
within
from
could
within.
could, could be that.
Emanates.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Emanates from that. So my way of looking at HR departments that I've run is that in building that trust, was that I try to connect with workers. I had this process that every morning I would walk around the building and I would go and just sit and talk with people to build up this trust. Because as you said, trust is that anchor. Uh,
Correct.
but if a lot of cultures inside of organization, if I try and build that, should the C-suite, the plus ones, always also mirror that same kind of approach?
They should, Ron.
Good.
It would not be in building a culture. It's not HR who would should only be driving the
Yeah.
change. Uh, Transformation of culture, changing of old habits, being able to really direct and your vision, mission, and goals of the organization. It starts with the CEO, the C levels.
Yeah.
So as an HR leader, that's why I've mentioned earlier. Aside from changing yourself, aside from being a model to other people, you have to talk to your stakeholders,
Yeah.
make them understand why are we doing this,
Yeah.
what is the impact, and of course, what is when we say impact, what show to them what will be the ROI. The ROI is less attrition, higher productivity, being able to be our employees, being able to be ambassadors of our company, which in return would be able to what? Get more clients, get more customers, and have a very positive brand in the market.
You just gave a master class on how it should be done. But in a lot of cases, it challenges the people is the plus ones, and they may not see that. But that was a great business case you gave in doing that. So if I'm in that organization and I'm trying to explain the why of what we do from human resources, and that C-suite team maybe does not get it, or maybe they're slow to coming around to this level of thinking.
Mhm.
So how do we work with leaders? You mentioned stakeholders. Would it be an individual approach, or would it still be the group of the C-suite, or what strategies would we use if they're kind of on the fence?
Um, if they're on defense, I would rather to my strategy would be talk to them on a one-on-one basis.
One-on-one. Okay.
I need to make sure that I convert my C levels into
Yeah.
allies.
Yeah.
Being able to have someone as an ally in the board or in the C level would
Yeah.
be able to would make my work more easier because I know that someone will back my idea, will back me up in my idea, and will also try to influence other C levels. Again, this business heads would always look into what will this initiative, how will this initiative impact the organization,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's better to show them where we are right now. What is the productivity? What is the absenteeism rate, the attrition rate? What
Okay.
are the things that is happening? And where do we like to go if we make a cultural transformation of the whole organization? It's really hard because it after the C levels, you have to go down to the managers, you have to
Yes.
go down to the frontline
Yes.
leaders, and that's the reason why
Yeah.
organizational transformation is not done in a day.
Yes. Yeah. It's a journey. But
It's
what
a journey.
what you talked about was interesting. The concept you talked about. So C-suite as a whole may not get it. So what you're saying is that we do it kind of so in change management, it's called a stakeholder analysis. We look at each individual leader and we try and connect one-to-one on each one of those and try and form a consensus as a result of that. And that may help the group understand more of what we're trying to achieve. Is that kind of correct?
Agree, because if you have the backing of your C levels, if you have the support of your executives, then it will be easier
Yeah.
to have also the support and the alignment of your managers and frontline leaders,
Okay.
because basically they would know that this is something that our top executives wanted us to do. It's not only being initiated by HR, but it is initiated across the whole organization by our leadership team.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, so you feel that comfort zone that you can go to that one individual. You feel that comfort zone that you can talk to the C-suite. And one of the things I get sometimes when I talk to HR people, the influencing skills are not there, not there
Agree.
yet,
Agree. Not there yet.
and maybe they don't feel if they interact, they feel a -1 in talking to that leader. They don't see it as a peer that you're offering advice, and you're in an
Mhm.
advisory role in doing that. So that takes a while to build that up. You just don't come out of the
Agree.
chute and right away you interact with the C-suite, a board level presentation. How do you prepare for that? How do you
Well, you
put?
don't want to you don't want to just walk to your C levels or C level and just tell them your idea. You have to build the relationship. You have
Yeah.
to build what I normally call this as an emotional investment.
Okay.
Over time, there should be an emotional investment that you would have with your C levels or something that would align you to would have alignment to either values, habits, or whatnot.
Mhm.
Something that they will see you as a partner. They
Okay.
will see you as someone that they would like to work with or they can work with. And I think what's important is that they see you as an expert in your field. A lot of HR leaders fail to do so to gain trust of leaders because oftentimes when leaders would say, make a decision, and you know for yourself that that decision might not be something
Yes.
something that is would create a huge
I, I,
impact
I,
to the
I
organization.
see you. I see you're struggling to try and say it the right way.
Yeah, the right way. Uh, Sometimes our leaders create decisions that
Yeah.
might impact the organization differently instead of positively, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's I don't show the negative side of them. I don't show the negative side of the decision. I would rather that I'll influence them by providing my own idea
Mhm.
and why I think
Mm.
that this would be a better route.
Yeah.
And I always believe in a win-win situation.
Yeah.
Where's that sweet spot?
Yeah.
Where is that sweet spot that we can work together, that we can agree on, and that we know that if we do this as a team, then we'll achieve something
Mm. Mm.
rather than always be head to head on
Yeah.
making decisions.
Yeah. So you mentioned something there that really connected with me because I gave a speech last week, and it was talking about the same kind of influencing skills from this so-called HR perspective, or it could be in marketing of whatever function it is. And what you were saying was that you're the expert for people strategy, and it's expert to expert, and I'm
Correct.
giving you insight on people dynamics which you don't have. You so it's really an advisory role in optimum situation. It's an advisor to the organization.
Agree. Agree. They need to see us as someone as partnering with them
Yeah.
rather than fighting with them
Yeah.
or again, I've seen organizations where HR leaders are not uh, aligned with their CFOs, are not aligned with their GMs.
Yeah.
I've that will be a very hard spot. I mean, if you're not aligned with your CFO, then all of your initiatives will just be turned down. If you're not aligned with your GM, then all of your programs will not be
Yes.
supported.
Yeah.
So even if you have great plans, great initiatives, great programs, even if you say that this is industry's best practices, if you cannot rally support
Yeah.
from your leaders,
Yeah.
then that would be useless.
Mhm. So what one of the phrases I use is connect first and you collaborate second.
Agree,
I can't
agree.
go and collaborate first if I haven't built the connection.
Correct.
Yeah. But again, we come back to that challenge, and I think my thought has always been not to be branded or viewed as an HR person, but to be viewed as a business person
Business
first.
partner. Mhm.
Yes, business person, business partner, and then HR second. So if I'm looking through the lens of business, I'm going to apply the people strategy, which I'm the expert in, to that particular situation. Is that kind of the right way to?
Agree. That's the reason why you're my idol because you actually said it correctly.
Yeah.
For a person, for a leader to be able to trust you, and that's the reason why it's very important for business, for HR to have business acumen, the understanding of the business. How does the business really work? How does the business create revenue? How does
Wow.
the
Wow.
business becomes productive and competitive to the market? If you don't understand that and you just push and push because you say that this is the best practice in HR, this
Yeah.
is something we should be doing, our competitors are doing it, without even understanding how it impacts operation, how it impacts revenue, how it will impact morale, then again you'll just be going back to the table because no one will be listening or no one will be supporting your ideas.
You know, again, you touched on something which I go through weekly when I talk to HR teams across the globe, and I'll say, how many of you understand what the organization strategy is? How many of you understand what your number one revenue generating product is? What are the challenges that the business is facing? And for the most part, I get maybe one or two people that say that they understand that. So business acumen was the key.
Correct.
There was some research that was done by Conferry, and the research was based on interviewing C-suite and trying to understand from them what would the human capital department need to get better at. And 40% of 1,000 respondents says business acumen was the first one in understanding the business.
That's correct because you have to learn their language first.
Yes.
You have to learn where they're coming from. You have to learn the the points that they're taking whenever they make a decision for you to be able to align yourself and
Yeah.
be able to add value to
Mhm.
whatever you will be providing them in terms of suggestions, in terms of adding your expertise to the
Yes.
table.
Yeah. Adding your expertise through the lens of what the business is facing, what the strategy is, and then I can navigate through that and create some kind of people strategy that's going to enable us to increase performance.
Agree.
Yeah, for the most part. How do you build business acumen? How did you build business acumen? Because as I said, you've had an amazing career, and starting where you started from to be where you are today. How did you build business acumen? But better still, when did you know business acumen was important, that you needed to understand that?
When I started my career in HR, I'm more of a specialist, Ron, before I shifted to an HR business partner role. It was when I shifted to the HR business partner role that I realized that the best way to talk to my leaders, to talk to my stakeholders, is for me to understand where they're coming from.
Hmm.
If it's very hard for me to I needed to understand the business
Yes.
for me to be able to understand. For example, I have a plan, I have a program, and this would entail cost. But of course, uh, if you know the business and you know and you have a business insights, you know that at this particular quarter of the year, business goes down, productivity
Yes.
goes
Yes.
down.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And why would you push for a high cost initiative at that particular part of the year, right? Or or let's say that you are trying to create a um, uh, an initiative that would improve performance
Yes.
through training leaders, and you realize and you don't know that basically 80% of your employees are are for example, if you're in a manufacturing firm and there are very little skills that is needed
Yes.
for them to be able to be successful, then rather focus on making them efficient at their work than
Hmm.
providing learning and development programs that would not that they won't be able to use.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
They won't be able to use unless they're identified as high potential performers that can move up to the ladder. I mean,
Mm.
uh, I think I think what we sometimes fail to do is really understand, because we're too excited. We're too excited as HR professionals to implement our programs,
Yeah, yeah,
implement our strategies. When we learn of a best practice, when we read of a good program and we would like to implement it, we tend to be very excited
yes.
and not look into, will it work in my company? Will it work in my organization?
You nailed it. And this is the challenge I have that I tell people, don't get always hung up on best practices, because that best practice worked in that organization because of the DNA of the organization, because of the
Mm-hmm.
kind of business they're in, because of the average age, tenure. There's a whole lot of underpinnings that made that successful. Can you translate that from this case to your case? Maybe, maybe not, if you mirror the same DNA, but in a lot of cases, it's not going to work.
Yes, agree.
Yeah. But I notice that people will always say, well, I just want to understand best practice. I said, understand best practice as a framework, but
It's a
you have
framework.
to understand that could have come from a USA company. That could have come from a Middle Eastern company. Will it
Mm-hmm.
translate, say, into the Philippines? Because the
Agree.
market, culture, mindset, so many variables that come into play as it relates to that.
Agree.
That's why that was a good point for you to talk about, trying to understand. It's great to understand that, but can it work inside of my organization?
Agree. There's a lot of nuances, and you mentioned there's a lot of nuances always, because each and every organization is unique. If we do not accept that, if we don't understand those nuances,
Yes.
then we're just trying to force fed things
Yeah.
just to do a role as an HR,
Yeah.
but not really to be successful
Mm, mm,
in and influence people and helping the business.
mm.
Because you can really have great talent development programs. You can really have great total rewards programs. But at the end, is it supporting the business growth? Is it
Yes.
supporting the vision of the organization? Is it supporting revenue?
Mhm.
So those things. And I've learned it the hard way, because I have to be mentored by my stakeholders on that. I have
Yes.
to I have to swallow a humble how would you
Humble
say this,
pie.
humble pie, swallow a humble pie and realize that, hey, yeah, I need to
Yeah.
learn this. I need
Yeah.
to understand the
Yeah.
business first before I
Mm,
can
yeah.
make my own recommendation. Because if I just make a recommendation without even understanding where my stakeholder is coming from or where the business is, then at the end of the day, it won't work.
Yeah. And talking, understanding the business. So I'm thinking of a HR business partner, maybe interviewing at a company, and you're interviewing for the job.
Hmm.
So would you say, before you go on that interview, as you're going through that interview process, you learn as much about that business as possible? You know, you,
That's
you apply the business acumen to that business, and you do a full diagnostic of the business. Number one, where it is. Talk to me about that.
You know what? One of the things that I do whenever I am interested in a company, I do my due diligence.
Yes.
I would normally check who are the leaders, what
Yes.
are the feedbacks, what
Yes.
are the feedbacks for the employees, how do they run their business,
Hmm.
what are the decisions that has been made over the past 3 5 years, what's the revenue,
Yes.
what's the tenure of the people in the organization. So, and will I be of value if I join them?
Yes. Yes.
So I think it's very important for us to be able to know that, because oftentimes people, especially those who are mid managers or starting their career in HR, would apply for a role focus on the HR work. They would apply for a role that they would know that I know about HR. I
Yeah.
know about the things that I do. I know
Yeah.
I am competent on the things that I do. But if you translate that and if ever you would encounter a panel or leaders who would try to dig in, how do you understand the company,
Yeah.
and how do you understand how the company works, or what is the latest about the organization, why do you really want to be part of the company, then you don't know what to say because basically you're just applying because you feel that you're qualified because of the skill set that you have. But skill set is important, but what's more important is your understanding of the business, the people,
Yeah.
and how the industry of that business works. Because if you don't have an idea about it, then you're just like all of the apples in the basket.
Yeah, and you're just connecting on the job description, and you did not connect the job description to the organization or
Mhm,
the challenges that the organization is having. And that's why I
mhm.
think a lot of HR people will make that mistake because they just focus on the skill set that they're bringing to the table without understanding maybe there's challenges or some so. Or here's what I say: what successes have you had in the past that could relate to the challenges that this org is facing?
Is that a question for me? Wow.
No, no, no.
What
I'm
success?
making that as a statement. So
Okay,
really,
okay.
yeah, yeah. I was making that as a statement because what you said was correct. They focus on the job description without understanding the challenges that the business is having, and then I pull it back and say maybe you've had some successes in looking at one of the challenges if you found that out. So maybe that's what you're taught through when you have that one-on-one interaction.
Agree. Agree.
Mm. So from the journey that you've gone through, and it took you a while to try and understand that business side of it, what advice, and it's going to kind of take off from what we were just talking about, what advice would you give to aspiring HR people, maybe at their first role, maybe they're frustrated, maybe they're just glorified administrative assistants and they want to move beyond that? What advice would you put your coaching hat on? And what advice would you coach this particular person?
We always start with the why. Why are
Okay.
you doing this?
Yes.
Why are you applying in this company? Why are you doing this particular role? Why are you interested to really pursue a career in HR? Because if you answer that, then it's half the battle already.
Okay.
Second is, of course, when you understand your why, you need to prepare for your goals.
Okay.
What are your dreams? What is your definition of success? What is basically your life goals? And I'm not talking about goals that are very high. I mean, I always believe that we should always start with a goal that we feel will be achievable in 6 to 12 months,
Yeah. Okay. Short.
but still have a long-term goal of what you really want. I mean, if for example, um in my career, I always wanted to be a renowned speaker,
Mhm.
not only in HR, but also I would like to speak a lot of
Yeah.
things beyond HR.
Yeah.
And I've who is your model for that?
Mm.
Who is your who how do you model your career to a person that you would like to be? At least you have a template, you have something to
Yeah.
follow, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
At work, always take initiative.
Yeah.
If you don't take initiative in life, then someone will do, and someone will be
Yeah.
successful.
Yeah.
Always take initiative. um and when at work, always be your own evaluator. Don't let people, or don't let your manager evaluate your work. Be the first person to evaluate your work, and
Mhm.
then have your manager
Mhm.
evaluate it.
Mhm. Mhm. It
um
now what I was going to say, it strengthens the conversation.
Correct,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
the conversation.
Yeah.
What else? I think that the reason why I mentioned taking initiative earlier is because at work we always have to anticipate need, right? What would the company need in the next 6 months or next 12 months? For example, if you are in an organization and you know that there would be growth in terms of headcount, in terms of ramp, what will you be doing right now to prepare yourself for that particular ramp? Not only in terms of sourcing, but also does your existing policy support the growth of the company? Do you have the proper tools? Do you have the proper people? Planning is always important, and it only happens if you anticipate the needs of the organization.
Okay. Okay.
Being
Cool.
able to communicate well, Ron, that's one thing that I struggle. That's
Yeah.
one thing that I struggle, to be honest.
I
Um,
think you do a very good job of communicating. So I'm going to give you my side of that. You do a very good job. Every time I've seen a speech of yours, you are always able to get through, with the concept you're talking about, the whys of doing it. So you get my vote that you do a very good
thank
job of
you.
that. But it's okay that you're still struggling and want to get better at what you do. That's okay.
I think the reason why a lot of great HR leaders or highly competent HR leaders are not able to get the buy-in of not only their stakeholders but even their teams
Yeah.
is because they don't communicate well.
Yes.
They don't communicate how the ideas
Yes.
that they have,
Yeah.
or if they communicate, they fail to really follow through, or if they communicate it in a manner where people don't understand.
Yes.
So I think being
Yes.
able to communicate and being able to be understood is very important.
Yeah.
um, I would relate that to a saying that you should always be the person who people don't need to interpret
Mm.
whatever you say or whatever you
Okay.
do.
Okay. Because you
Uh,
clarity. You provide
there's
clarity.
clarity. There's
Yes.
clarity in you.
Yeah.
And Ron, I just like to share this to you. When I was growing my HR career, and when I am in a situation where I don't know, or I'm having doubts, or I'm in a situation where I'm having a lot of things to think what decision that I'll be making, one of the things that I always do is I go back to my previous leaders. I don't I rarely talk to them, but I would rather, how would, for example, you, Ron, how would Ron resolve this issue?
Mm.
How would Ron be able to resolve this particular problem?
Yeah.
Based on my experience with him, what are the things that he would normally do to be able to champion or be able to have clarity on such issues?
Yeah.
So basically, again, I think it's important that you have
Yeah.
someone who would mentor, someone who would you look up to, someone you feel would be a role model.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it only happens when you network, right, Ron? I mean, like, for example, I'm very humbled, and I'm very happy that I was able to know you and know a lot of leaders, because I I open up myself and networking with great leaders like you, and being able to learn a lot of things with leaders like you. If I remain in my shell, if I remain in my own little box, in my company, and not hear or learn the ideas, best practices, or how the thought process of leaders like you, then I will just be a mediocre,
Mm.
someone who will just satisfy year on year evaluation,
Yeah.
but never really achieve something.
Beyond that, yeah, I want to make a
Mhm.
shout out to Anife out of Lagos, Nigeria, who's one of my business partners. She says, I agree with you. It's about communicating well. And everybody kind of understands that. You know what I thought about when you talked about communicating well? I thought about me as a public speaker. You would not have wanted to see me the first time I tried to speak in public. It was absolutely awful. But you know what I did? I went back and reflected, and I said, I got to get up on the stage and do it again. I got to
Correct.
get, and so every time I had an interaction, we can go back to trying to reflect. Reflection is a big point. that if I had a meeting and the meeting did not go well, I'm going to spend some time analyzing that meeting and said, if I had to do this again, what would I do differently? And if you reflect on each interaction, you will get better at what you do. And the common phrase of that is practice. You know, a sports team, they play a game, but they still come back the next week and they practice and they try and do better than what they did before. And so
Agree.
it's always
Agree.
about so if you're trying to communicate well, you had an interaction, you didn't communicate well, you're going to have to go back and analyze that and be honest with yourself. That's just what I did. That first time gives me shivers to even think about. I got up on the stage and I was going to give a speech, and it was absolutely awful. But I
Agree.
get up on the stage now, I don't even give it a second thought. I go into speech mode and I do what I got to do, the same as you do. And I've seen you on stage numerous times.
Thank you. Thank you. Not many people know that I suffered way back in elementary and high school with stuttering. I stutter a lot. And I was able to change that by building self-confidence. And again,
Yeah.
it's really more of uh, practice. I joined oratorical contests. I joined drama clubs for me to be able to get a sense of the stage, to get a sense of people watching me, to be able to
Yes.
express myself as much as I want.
Yeah. But if you would not have done that, you would have still been stuck in that challenge of
Yes,
stuttering or having that, trying to overcome that. But what you did was
correct, correct.
you stepped back and said, well, you know what? I'm going to go and I'm going to join this group and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And now you would never even think in 1,000 years that you ever suffered from that because you reflected upon it and you did what you had to do.
Yeah.
Masterclass, masterclass. So, what advice, as we begin the process of closing out, we didn't get a chance to do our mid break, but it's cool because the conversation is dynamic and I'm really enjoying this conversation. What advice would you give to leaders? Because, we talk about the great resignation. We talk about people not being satisfied at work. They're struggling with working from home, working from anywhere. For the CEOs that listen into the show, and we have quite a few that will always listen in, what advice would you give them to try and bring their organization back from a people perspective?
a lot of a lot of companies have invested millions of dollars for sophisticated tools, millions of dollars to improve systems inside their organizations, because they believe that if they invest in tools and processes, work will be more efficient and people will be more productive. What they fail to understand or realize is that the human touch or the human relationship still is the number one aspect
Yes.
in every organization.
Yes.
Never lose sight on uh, creating relationships with your co-leaders, with your team members, with your employees. Highly engaged employees would really like to have a lot of engagement activities with their leaders. I know that there is a shift right now in the new normal where employees would enjoy, like for example, uh, work at home, right? And we needed to invest with tools to be able for them to be successful in working at home or having a hybrid work condition. Um, but lo and behold, you're still investing a lot in making sure that these people are engaged.
Mhm.
Because the reality is, even if you have a work from home setup, even if you have a hybrid setup, there are other companies who would always offer that, and there are other companies who would always pay more.
Yes.
One thing that I realized is that relationship in most cases would would have value for people to stay
Mm.
if you create reasons for people to stay.
Yes.
Then engagement will always be high,
Okay.
and your investments with tools and processes, that will always be secondary.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Cool. Because we have to compete. So when I saw the announcement from the guy from Tesla, who I think is a nutcase, and anyway, he says you either work from home or you either work
Or
in
go
the
back to the
office
office.
or you're going to lose your job. And I'm thinking, if I was in the EV industry, I'd say, you know what? Let's start targeting all of their key leaders and said, hey, you can come here and do the same thing, and you can choose your style of work. So
Correct.
it's a competitive advantage. Flexibility is now a competitive advantage. Would you agree?
I would agree. I would agree that being competitive, flexibility is something that people would always want.
Yes.
And to add to that is, of course, with the new normal, uh, it it gives an opportunity for HR leaders, for people leaders to think out of the box on what are the things that we can do to really engage our people, even if they're not in the office,
Yeah.
or how can how can we maintain those relationships, even if we do not see each other often.
Hmm. Okay.
um, do we just invest on tools, or do we make sure also to balance that by making sure that there's a regular connect, there's still we still prioritize programs, initiatives that
Yeah.
would encourage people to speak out and to bond with other employees.
Okay. As last question, as we close out, what certifications would you advise HR people to move towards? It's strategic HR, strategic workforce planning, change management. I mean, you've gone through it all. You've developed HR leaders across the globe. What
You
what can
know,
they focus on for this new future state of the profession?
Ron, it would always depend on what is the goal of the person.
Okay.
I mean, I've took an MA, I took different international certifications,
Yes.
but the reason for it is I hunger for knowledge. It's
Okay.
not because that or also I plan that if I retire, I would have an opportunity to teach.
Yes. Okay.
But for other, if there are a lot of certifications going around, but I think what's important on top of my mind is focus on the certification that would make you adept in HR business partnering,
Yes. Okay.
because that's really the trend and how businesses are transforming right now.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Darwin, thank you, thank you, thank you. This was a masterclass for all HR people, HR BPs, whatever it is, or you're in HR. This was a masterclass that you gave today, and I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you just got off a flight and rushing in to connect, but I really appreciate you being on the CEO series. It's very important for me to have you here.
Again, Ron, I really appreciate you inviting me, and I'm humbled that you actually invited me to be in your show. Um, I've followed your career, and this is coming from my heart. You inspire me, and you inspire a lot of people. So please keep on being successful, because we will in our side of the globe, we will also try to be successful one way or another.
Okay. Thank you so much. I need you to hang on as we close out. Thank you so much.